This customer's owned this fork for around about 8 months. He's doing quite a bit of riding on it and has recently just completed a 230 kilometer race, the Trans-Baviaans actually, did very well with it. So now we need to make sure that the fork is looked after that long rutted road. So I like to check the air pressure before we disassemble the fork so I can note it for the customer to put it back to the same air pressure again. But also most importantly is that I don't want any high pressure in here when I'm opening this fork and working on it. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to start with is checking out the CSU, the upper legs. This is a crucial part of the fork. Make sure it's nice and smooth, no nicks or scratches. And also I'm looking here for premature signs of wear and tear. Okay, it's very important in the next stage that we use only the manufacturer's seals, especially for the DT Swiss. These seals have been manufactured specifically for the O.D.L fork. No aftermarket seals in this fork, please. We've got 2 specially designed dust wiper seals. They're only designed to keep dust and residue out. They're not designed to keep water out. So be careful when you are in a situation at a stage race or something where there's guys with high pressure hoses. Keep them away from any fork seals because the water will go inside if it is sprayed at them. So that's just something to remember because water inside the fork will definitely do damage. Okay, so we've got the 2 seals. We've got 2 O-rings, and those are for the lower legs. Just now we put together. And we've got the 2 foam wipers. Now the foam wipers are there, keep all the oil up inside the top of the fork. When the fork compresses, the oil actually goes up into the top here. And as you're riding, the fork gets kept lubricated by the oil from these foam wipers running down and keeping the lubrication between the CSU and the bushing. So it's very important that your foam wipers are always clean. In fact, I recommend replacing these once a year depending on the conditions you ride in, but doing a lower leg service every 6 months and replacing these. It's a cheap replacement to keep your fork going really well for a long period of time. All right, so for these, what we're going to do is we're going to soak them in some oil. It's the Panelin oil for the lower legs. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and put the seals in. I always like to put them in dry. So before I do that, I'm going to make sure the fork leg is nice and dry as well. I'm going to take a little bit of my lint-free cloth, get some isopropyl alcohol, just spray a little bit on the cloth. There we go. And just to run it around, make sure you hold the fork upside down because you don't want any of this inside. Just run it around just to make sure that there's no grease or any oily residue left over there when I push the seals in. What I prefer to do also on the forks that have been not been serviced for a while is I use a very fine piece of sandpaper. In this case, I've got this aluminium sandpaper. It's very, very fine. What I'm going to do is just make sure there's no rubber residue on the inside of the fork leg that will impede me pushing these in and them seating properly. So remember, when you're using sandpaper inside here, you actually don't want the stuff going inside any pieces. So I like to tilt the fork upside down like this, just wipe around it gently like that, and this side as well. It just makes sure there's no residue left on the inside of there. So now we're going to go ahead and seat the seals. We take the seals, put them onto our seal driver. As you can see, they fit nice and snugly, which is why we use the manufacturer's seal driver. We take the seal, and if you look here, we just put it straight in. It fits in with the bushing so that it's always going to slide in straight. Take your rubber hammer, seat it fairly firmly. Just make sure that it's all seated correctly. You don't want to have a situation where the seals are in skew. So let's do the second one. Okay, nice and firm in there. Now we've put both dust wipers in, we can see that they're in nice and straight. So we're going to go ahead and put in the foam wipers. We're going to stick them in. There's a special spot for them to go that you need to hit, and we need to get them in nice and straight as well. Okay, so the first one's in. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and replace the lower leg seals. The little O-rings came in your kit. We're going to take off the old ones using a seal pick. Just dig them out very gently. Throw it away. Take the new one and gently put it on. Just be careful it doesn't get cut from the threads on here. Just remember to push them all the way in. So we put them both on, and now we're ready to assemble the fork. Okay, I like to just slip it over the seals like that. And why I only prefer to do it like that is so that the bushing is right at the top here. And when I put the lube into these lower legs, I want it to run down between the two bushings. So the oil must sit in this gap here. If I had to compress the fork anymore, the oil is going to sit here. I actually want it to be right up at the top. So we've done the assembly. We're going to put the manufacturer's lube in the lows now, and it's 7 mils per side. Let's go ahead and do it. I like to tilt the fork at 45-degree angle when I'm putting in the fluid because I want it to run all the way down to that last bushing. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and close it up. Remember, this is a reverse thread, so we're going to tighten it opposite direction all the way until we get a nice tight feel, because we're going to torque it just now with the torque spanner. And then we take the number 8, we do the same, we slip it in the other side, and we tighten it up again until it's nice and firm. And then we go ahead, and our torque setting is 10 Newton meters, and we go ahead and make sure that this is nice and tight. Okay, there we go. Now we're going to do the rebound. Mustn't forget to put this on. No need to do it too tight, just tension it on nicely. The last bit is pumping up the shock. Okay, there we go. And just give the fork a nice spray down. I want to make sure that there's no residue oil left over on the outside. Give it a nice clean. All right, so there we have it, all done. Okay, just a couple of tips. If you compress your fork now, after the service, you'll notice that there is a line of oil. That's a really good sign. That means your fork is properly lubricated. When the oil goes away, especially if you're doing a lot of riding, I would worry about just dropping the lows and checking the oil level again, just to make sure that there's still oil inside. Hopefully this has been very insightful and given you a lot of ideas about how to maintain your fork. This fork will give you many years of satisfaction if it's looked after properly. Thank you for watching.